Dating. What is dating? Dating is a form of courtship where two people come together to have social activities. And in those social activities, their goal is to assess and see if the other person is suitable to become a spouse. And really, all it comes down to is going on a date, as we would call it, going to some kind of movie or some kind of social event where we can get to know each other better. But it always hasn't been this way. Let's go back through the years and see how it's been, or even go across culture. First thing I want to talk about is gypsies and how they would grab a girl. In the British TV series, Gypsy Wedding, we have the sight here of something strange to us. But it would be the gypsies actually would come together, and if the gypsy boy wanted to date a girl, he couldn't because dating isn't allowed among the gypsies. And gypsy girls are actually quite chaste. And so if he wanted a girl, he would actually come up to her and grab her, manhandle her, and try to get a little smoochy. Is that strange? Yes. Is it violent? Absolutely. Did it work? Well, apparently. Let's go on back in time to the early 17th century. And when we go there, we go to see the Welsh. And Welsh young men, what they would do is they would carve spoons, actually carve wooden spoons, intricately carve these spoons, and then they would offer this to their crushes. And if the girl was accepting of this spoon, we would then see that she would start the courtship with this. Now the Welsh have let go of this spoon carving, and they've actually gone now to regular dating, I guess you'd call it, but they still give out spoons on occasion to show their love and admiration for the other person. Let's go to the 18th century. In the early 18th century in New England, we actually find something called carry a big stick. And so they'd carry this big stick around on their dates. And the reason they do this is because if you wanted to whisper sweet nothings to your loved one, you really couldn't do it without daddy sitting in the room and listening to what you had to say. I know it made me nervous. So they would take this 6-foot-long hollow tube and they would talk to each other through the hollow tube. That way, parents could still sit in the room and make sure nothing scandalous like hand-holding was going on, but they could still say their sweet nothings across the room. Let's move to the 19th century. And there we find in rural Austria, this is my favorite one, girls would actually take an apple slice, put it in their armpit, and they would go through the whole night and do a dance. And they would dance with all the young men and with this apple slice stuffed in her armpit. At the end of the night, she would choose the young man that she liked best, hand him the stinky apple, and if he woofed it down, well then the courtship would continue. I bet the Austrian boys aren't too sad about that one going the way of the dodo. As we look through and we move back towards dating in modern times, and there's a lot of pitfalls that we all come in contact with, and there are a lot of things that we really just need to start avoiding and looking at when we start dating. The first thing each of us really needs to look at is, what are we looking for? And a lot of times I think we're looking for the right person, or a lot of girls even go as far as calling him Mr. Right, or Miss Right in that case. But looking at the right person, we've got to figure out who is the right person and what are we looking for. So we need to kind of come up with a scheme of the person we're looking for. What aspects would they have? What aspects can you not live without? What aspects would you want to have in a person? So of course you need them to be good looking, smart, funny, athletic. Those are all good things. But the reality of it is, there's nothing really intrinsically wrong with any of these qualities, but if this is where we're making our focus be is on the outward, well then we're missing the whole point. Maybe it's time to take a step back and stop looking at what we want, and stop looking for Mr. Right or the right person and start becoming the right person. And when we look at this, we can see that there's a lot that we can draw from the Bible. If we open up our Bibles and go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we find that the love chapter has a lot to say about what we're looking for. So if we wanted to be the right person, then this is what we need to do. Because here's the reality. If you're looking for a strong Christian who has a lot of these characteristics we learned earlier, these outward characteristics, as well as being a strong Christian, what we've got to do is we've got to become someone that a strong Christian would want. So if we look in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 6, we find that the right person is patient and kind. The right person isn't rude or arrogant. They aren't boastful. The right person tells the truth. You don't always have to have your way. And we always don't have to be right, even though a lot of times we think we need to be. These things don't come naturally. And that's something we've got to realize, is that it's not natural to be patient and kind. We've been told our whole lives that we're the most important thing, and that's not the real truth at all. So what we have to do then is, in realizing that these things aren't natural, what comes natural is chemistry and passion. And with chemistry and passion, those things are the easiest to find, but they're also the easiest to lose once we get into that relationship. So if we built our relationship on passion, on chemistry, what are we going to do when it's gone? So let's really move into the basis of our talk today, which is dating for His glory. When we look at this, we need to realize that we're becoming the kind of person that God would want us to be, as well as the kind of person that someone would want to date. And with that in mind, dating for His glory, we really have to focus on one thing, and that's entering this relationship with honor. And that has three aspects, really. The first is honoring God. The second is honoring our date. And the third is honoring ourselves, our own body. So let's start off with honoring God. And honoring God, everything we do should be to honor and glorify God. And especially the things we do on a date should honor and glorify God. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse 4, each one of you knows how to control his own body in holiness and in honor, not in passion of the lusts like the Gentiles do. In verse 7, for God has not called you to impurity, but to holiness. What that's telling us is that our dates should look different than the world's dates. Our dates should be different aspects. They should look a whole lot different than what the world is doing. We should honor God in what we do, unlike the world is doing. The second thing we need to do is honor our dates. Well, how do we honor our dates? Well, dating should be a time of enjoying that person, getting to know them better, and seeing if this is a person you could spend the rest of your life with. Dating a person should be a time to enjoy the activity you have planned, to be with this person and to see if this is someone you could live with the rest of your life. It's not a time to explore sexuality. It's not a time to make them feel uncomfortable or push them to do something that they're not comfortable doing or don't want to do. A good rule of thumb in dating is to treat your date like you'd want your sibling to be treated. The last aspect of honor is honoring yourself or honoring your own body. In 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 19 and 20, or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit which is within you, whom you have from God? For you are not your own, you were bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. The first thing we need to do is determine what kind of person we want to be on a date or what kind of story we want to tell. The second thing we need to do is tell that story. Be that person that we've decided to be. And the third aspect of this is the reality that we have decided ahead of time what we're going to do on this date and who we're going to be. You can't step into that date and be in a hard situation, a tempting situation, at that point in time decide this is where I'm going to act on this date or this is what I'm going to do because it's too late. Satan's trying to tempt us enough. We don't need to tempt each other or tempt ourselves or tempt our date. So the idea here is, before you even go on this date, know where you're going, know what you're going to do, know when you're picking her up, know where you're going to be after that. Don't make time for intimate car rides or sitting in a parking lot where you shouldn't be. These are times that we need to be getting to know them better, not putting ourselves in tempting situations. Really giving up something now for something in the future isn't a sacrifice. It's an investment in our own futures. I brought a Snickers bar with me today because I wanted to give you an illustration of purity. And going out on dates, this is what we need to be looking towards, is a Snickers bar. What if I were to sit down with you guys in a group, and we're all sitting in a big circle, and I were to offer the Snickers bar to the group, and then the young man here on my left actually asked for the bar. So I get ready to give it to him, but instead of handing him the Snickers bar in the wrapper, I decide to open it up and then pass it right instead of passing it left. And each person, as they go around the circle, puts their hands on the Snickers bar. And it finally makes it to the young man on my left. And now he's taking the bar and he's looking at it and he's deciding what he's going to do with it. Because earlier, we both saw that guy right there sneeze. And we don't know what she's been doing with her hands. And who knows that, who's that guy even being right there? I've never even seen that guy before. I don't know what's on his hands. So the idea here is now, is this young man going to want the Snickers bar? Do you want it? And the idea is the same thing with our dates and with our spouse. We don't want a candy bar that's been passed around. We don't want a spouse that's been passed around either. I have two thoughts on this subject. The first thought comes from my friend Jennifer. Jennifer, when she was in junior high, she had an opportunity to sign a purity card. Now this purity card was given to her and she signed her name to it, and it was a promise to her future spouse that she would save herself sexually for her spouse. A few years back on her wedding night, she had kept it safe in her wallet, just like her purity. She got it out and she handed it to her spouse, and he didn't really know what it was. He took it and read it. And then as they embraced, he cried, realizing what it was she was giving him. She was giving him herself, all of herself, that she'd never given to anybody else. And he was crying because of the fact that he didn't have the same gift to give back to her. He'd given that gift away a long time ago to someone who meant almost nothing to him. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18, flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but sexual immorality a person commits against himself. We've been called to be soldiers of purity, really guardians of purity. Does it scare you to think that your spouse could be going on a date this weekend, and probably is? It should scare you. Is your future spouse thinking about you this weekend? Is he saving himself for you? Is your future spouse, is she going out this weekend and going to save those most intimate moments for your wedding night? Or is she giving them away to some guy right now? With that in mind, we can do something about it. Even now, we can be with our own dates right now, and we can help them to be as pure as possible. We can help them save themselves for their future spouse. We can be those guardians of purity. Wouldn't you want to know that there's someone out there that's guarding your spouse's purity as you are guarding someone else's? Because it's not likely that the people we date right now will be our spouses. If they are, that's great. But wouldn't you like to know that someone is out there helping guard your spouse? The last thing I want to leave you with is this illustration. I brought this Play-Doh with me because it makes a great point. I've got this Play-Doh and I've smoothed it out. And what I've done next is I've taken my hand and I've pressed it in just as hard as I can. You can't really see it that well. Maybe you can see a little bit, but the only thing that's on this Play-Doh is my handprint. And what this represents is what God had in mind for us the whole time with our own spouses. Right now, the only thing that fits and fits perfectly in this Play-Doh is my hand. And really, the only thing that should fit you is your spouse. They should fulfill all your needs, whether that be emotional needs, spiritual needs, or physical needs. But unfortunately, the world gets in the way of what God has made so perfectly and so purely. My hand fits perfectly right now, but what happens over time is this is the first time that you see something on TV that you shouldn't see. The scratches represent these sites that we go to and we shouldn't be going to. We know we shouldn't, but they're just a click away, and all these little scratches, they get a little bit deeper every time we go to these sites. This gouge right here is from the time that we went too far with our boyfriend or girlfriend. And right up here, this is the things that we hear and the jokes that we tell and the things that just aren't supposed to be in our life. As you can see, our perfect indention that was made by our hand or that our spouse would make in our own lives or on our own minds or in our own bodies gets deformed and changes. And now then, as I get married, my spouse comes and makes her impression on my life. No matter how hard she presses, those gouges and marks are still there. No matter how much she tries to fulfill all my needs, I can't get some of those images out of my head. Some of those gouges are just too deep. And some of those things, I just can't forget. This wasn't what God had in mind. This wasn't His plan from the beginning. What we do on a date is glorify God. It wasn't meant to be like this. It's not fair to your spouse, man or woman, for you to be thinking about someone else or remembering another time that you were with somebody else or something you saw on TV or an internet site you can't get out of your head. It's not fair for them to have to live up to a picture in a magazine or something somebody else is wearing. As I take my hand away and look at this one last time, I can see this is what my life feels like sometimes. And I don't want yours to be this way. So guard your purity. Guard your date's purity. I want to leave you with lastly a couple of things. And I defer to the fisherman for this. And I ask, what does a fisherman fish with? And the answer is whatever he's trying to catch. So if you fish with your body, the only thing you're going to catch is body snatchers. The last thing I want to say is to you young ladies is in looking at your young man you're dating, however he's acting right now is how he's going to act after you get married. Putting a ring on his finger and walking down the aisle doesn't change who he is. It just changes his status on Facebook. Young men, I want you to listen to how your girlfriend treats her family, her parents, her siblings, because this is how she's going to treat you someday. Those are my little bits of truth, and I want to end you with this last thought. And it's the idea here that God is the one to be glorified in everything we say and everything we do. And a lot of times we give Him the back seat or we kick Him out of the car altogether when we're on dates. But He's called us to be something bigger, something better than ourselves. He's called us to be guardians of purity. He's called us to be more than what the world is asking us to be. Will you be a guardian? Will you date for His glory?